Hello and welcome to this new episode of Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers podcast. I'm Matilde and I'm your host. I'm an inner transformation mentor supporting women in healing mother wounds through women's circles and through the one-on-one 10 weeks program. To know more about these offerings, check out my website womenreclaimingtheirfullness.me. Now today we're talking about, is every word spoken by your narcissistic mother manipulation? So to get into this topic, I want to start by asking you, do you often get caught in the words your mother uses with you? Do you feel exhausted and devastated after a conversation with her? Do you ever feel like you're in the wrong or crazy for interpreting her words the way you do? Or maybe too sensitive. Have you ever been told that? Or you're being paranoid, you're being too sensitive. You're the crazy one in the family. Do you ever wonder if her choice of words is deliberate to hurt you? Or maybe to manipulate you in some way? If you do, I get it. I truly do. I've been through all of that. I have been labeled too sensitive, the crazy one in the family, immature. I was definitely feeling exhausted and devastated after every conversation with my mother, and I did pay attention to every single word she used and how she used them and why she used them. So you're not alone in this. And I also get so many emails from listeners and from clients too about specific messages they've been sent by their mothers, or maybe quoting exact sentences that their mothers have used with them. And this can be in every kind of situation, really, but the most common is after setting a boundary. So like the person that usually sends me this, the people that would usually send me these messages or emails, quoting word by word what their mothers have responded or told them, very often they have just set a boundary. They've just set like a strong enough boundary with their mothers, and what comes is the reaction. So if you're listening today and you are among those who have sent me emails quoting your mother, please know that I'm grateful for your trust in sharing your experience with me. And I totally get how intense it is to be at the receiving end of whatever a narcissistic mother says. I really get it. And I also get how necessary it is to share it with someone, since as daughter of narcissistic mothers, we're often alone we feel, we're not alone actually, you're never alone, but we do feel alone because we feel like we might not share. You mightn't share that just with your friends or with people you know around that maybe have really lovely relationships with their mothers, and they mightn't actually get what those words are doing to you, and they might even try and tell you, oh, maybe that message isn't that bad. They might become, without realizing it, unintentionally part of the group of people that tell you that you're too sensitive or that you're being paranoid or stuff like that. So I get it how it is important to share it with someone that can actually help you and support you in this, and that sees it for what it is, and that can validate and confirm that you're not crazy for interpreting the way you do it. So I understand how sharing it with someone who can understand, it's a real help. My intention with this episode is to offer you clarity and support, so you'll be better equipped in the next communication with your mother. You'll be better able to understand what's happening. As I mentioned, receiving some kind of intense communication from your narcissistic mother will happen often after you set a boundary of some sort. Okay, it is to be expected. That's something that it is to be expected. She can react with insults, she can go in a rage, make a scene, she can react with victimhood, she can react with love bombing. That is one of the reactions that actually I know confuses people the most, and I get that. With gaslighting, with passive-aggressive statements, or with the silent treatment even, she can just stop talking to you, and so on. So tons of different ways she can react when you set a boundary. And in the roadmap to boundary setting, part of the first step, which is prepare, okay, that's the first step, prepare, state, and maintain are the 3 steps of boundary setting. Prepare is the first step. You'll find that there is a step within prepare that's called expect. It means you need to be prepared for a reaction from your mother, because you can be pretty sure there will be one. Okay, so the expect part is you preparing yourself, knowing that your mother will react in some way, and words are going to be part of that. So if you haven't already, download your free roadmap to boundary setting. The link is in the description of this episode. It's free and is a tool that is going to support you immensely in setting your boundaries with your narcissistic mother. So go ahead and do that. Now, hurtful communication with your narcissistic mother can also happen separate from boundary setting, of course. Tons of other situations where she will use words to manipulate you in some way. So the question is every word she speaks an attempt at manipulation? And I'm here sort of asking you, do you want the brutally honest answer? Because the brutally honest answer would be very possibly yes. Now, we can debate, of course, and there's a spectrum of narcissism. So is she like full on? Does she have narcissistic traits? And so on and so forth. So we can go on like that. But in general, if you've been through maternal narcissistic abuse, if your mother is a narcissist or has strong narcissistic traits, and you have resonated with a lot of the content in this podcast saying, wow, that has been my experience for sure, well then, very possibly every word that she speaks is some kind of an attempt at manipulation. That's just how they operate. Is it deliberate and conscious? That's the next question. And that depends, again, on the level of narcissism, and we would have to take it case by case. I've observed both. Absolutely deliberate choice of words to manipulate the other person, like conscious. They know exactly what they're saying and why they're saying it, and they're doing it on purpose. I've observed that in my own family, and I have seen that with clients. But I've also seen unconscious behaviors that may even come from good intentions on a surface level. So that the mother with narcissistic traits may actually superficially really believe she has good intentions when she behaves in a certain way. It's not coming from being malicious. There's actually good intentions there. But those words are still driven by a strong subconscious self-serving need. I'm giving you an example, like being overprotected with her own child. This can come from a mother that has been in her own childhood very neglected, very thrown out there, exposed to every sort of traumatic experience, and now there's like this intention to be super overprotective with her own daughter in a way though that completely keeps the daughter feeling unable to cope with life, not strong enough, completely disempowers the daughter long term and creates a trauma within the system. There can be situations where that escalates to actually telling the daughter you're not good enough to be facing the world out there because that's too dangerous, and the mother in question may actually really truly believe that she's doing that to protect her child, but there's a self-serving need at the back of it, which is she's trying to cope with her own trauma, and letting the child go feels like the neglect that she has experienced. There's guilt there's self-shaming and not being able to be a good mother. So she's trying to protect herself from all those very challenging emotions that she's shut down. And so how it comes up and out becomes like actually very damaging towards her daughter. So that is not like fully conscious, but is still driven by a self-serving need. Now, this is one example. There's billions of examples, and we're not going to go through it case by case today. What I can say is that whether she's fully aware of it or not, the result is that it creates hurt. Okay, the result of her words and the way she uses them creates hurt and has a strong negative impact in our lives as daughter of narcissistic mother at the receiving end of this. So whether she's fully conscious, whether she's maliciously actually choosing her words, or whether she's subconsciously choosing her words, the effect is that she's picking words to manipulate, and that has quite an impact on us as daughters that have experienced this. So a narcissistic mother has an agenda that is focused on meeting her own needs. Not our needs as daughters, but her own needs. These needs can be subconscious for sure, or very much in the conscious mind, as we said. There are layers to it. But to understand those layers for her is not your job. That's the main thing. Because you can hear what I just shared and go, oh, and having compassion for your mother, that's a wonderful thing. And of course, if you can find it in yourself to have compassion, I had to go through quite the journey to get to a place to have compassion for my mother. So I'm not telling you have to, and there's no bypassing it. If you feel like you can't, that's okay too. But if you can find it in yourself to have compassion, absolutely. If you can have some empathy for her even, absolutely. Again, you don't have to. But definitely is not your job to go and try and unpack the layers of her own experiences, the layers of trauma, the layers of issues that she has. That's not your job, it's not your responsibility. That would be her job if she decided to take responsibility and to deal with her own trauma and to actually actively looking for a healing journey for herself. But we can't do that for them. The point is that to go through with her agenda, she will use words as her weapons because she knows you and she knows what words to use to get a reaction out of you that serves her. It is very easy to get caught in her game because she knows you. She knows how to get you caught in her game and what words to use for that to happen. And how do you know you've gotten caught in her game? Anytime you give any attention to her words, like word by word, you've gotten caught. She has you. Anytime you give a reaction to her words, she's got your attention. And remember that to a narcissistic mother, any reaction from you is attention for her. Even if you get all upset and start yelling, that's still attention. They don't mind what attention they're getting as long as they're getting attention. So you may go on and ask yourself after a conversation with your mother or after a message, for example, or a phone call, you could be asking yourself, what did she mean when she called me this instead of that? You fill in the blanks. Did she truly say that? This time she said this, which was the opposite of what she said yesterday. So which one am I supposed to go with? How do I know if that is even an insult? Like she could have used some specific words and you're like confused. How do I know if that's even an insult? Or you could wonder, is she trying to hurt me by saying that? So have you ever found yourself caught in wondering any of that while staring maybe at a message that came in late at night out of the blue? I certainly have. The late at night technique is one that they particularly like because it's very easy to get someone dysregulated when you're before going to bed. You're tired. You've had your full day. This could be at work. This could be minding your family. This could be studying perhaps. You might be in college or whatever. And all of a sudden, like it could be 9, 10 p.m., even 11 p.m., there comes a message. And you're there looking at the words she's picked to send you that message at that time. And you're like, what the hell does this even mean? Am I supposed to feel upset? What's happening here? Why did she use these words? Why now? It's all deliberate. Or have you ever recounted a conversation maybe with your mother word by word to someone else because you remember each word she used. I've had that very often with clients and with people that are sharing it with me, but I also have it as a personal experience that I've done like thousands of times with my partner, for example, and I would just come off the phone call and repeat word by word what my mother had just said to me, to try and unpack the entire thing, like the literal words that she used and why. Have you gotten a headache analyzing the way she talks to you about others, for example, or what she said in a certain situation? Do you get caught wondering if it's normal for you to get upset or if you're just being paranoid? So again, if yes, I can totally relate. I really can. Again, the words she uses are aimed to create this, are aimed to create this confusion in you, to dysregulate you, to have you directing your attention in her direction. So going back to the message late at night, if you're spending that, maybe you don't answer her, maybe you have a boundary in yourself, you've already set it, and you're like, if a message arrives late at night, I'm not answering my mother, that's it, that's okay. But you still read it just in case, maybe there is a real emergency, maybe your mother is elderly and there could be situations where she might need you, so you still read it. If you spend the rest of the evening or the night caught in the words she used, upset by them, maybe after that you have a hard time falling asleep, maybe after that you wake up the next morning and the first thought you have is the words she used in that message, you're giving her attention. She got what she wanted. Even if you're not talking to her, even if you haven't actively engaged with the message, which is already a brilliant step anyways, but still that amount of attention, that mulling over her words, going over them again and again, it's giving her attention. Every word the narcissistic mother uses is a string she can pull you with. Imagine that. Imagine like literally being a puppet. I know this is not a very flattering image, but this is what happens. And we've all been through it, and there's a ton of us still going through it. So you're not alone in this, and there's no judgment with that. But that's just to explain the mechanism. It's like being a puppet, and there's strings. And your narcissistic mother is the one that moves the strings. They're emotional strings, but they're strings. And she can pull at hope, fear, guilt, pity, and comfort. Those are the 5 strings a narcissistic mother will pull to manipulate you. So if you want to know about those a little bit more, I explain them quite in depth in episode 47, the ABC of maternal narcissistic manipulation. So you can go and listen to that. I'll put the link in the description of this episode. But that's what happens. Every word she uses will pull at one of those strings or more than one at the same time. So can you stop her from doing that? Is there a way that you can stop her? You can't. You actually can't stop her from trying to do that. That is not in your control. You can't actually try and change your mother so that she stops using words to manipulate you. She is the only person that can do that. As we said at the beginning, she can take responsibility and go do her own work and stuff, but that's very rare. That's very, very rare. So it's not worth it to actually just hope for that, because I haven't seen it happen very, very often, actually, if any time. So what you can definitely do is you can stop her or highly reduce the effect that her words have on you. That's what you can do. That's where you're totally empowered. How can you do that? By stopping giving energy to her words. And by giving energy, I mean stop paying attention to every word she says. Because your attention is fuel. As we said, your attention is fuel for her. So if she sends you a message, and if you just go there analyzing it word by word and mulling it over word by word, you are fueling that. And what's going to happen then, you're going to engage in a conversation with her in the same manner. So that's going to give her fuel. Become aware and accept the fact that if your mother is a narcissist or acts like one, her words are weapons of manipulation. Her words don't reflect reality. Probably they're lies. Very often a narcissistic mother will use lies, partial or outright, but there's lies in there. And her words don't hold the truth. Ever. They're carefully selected to get a reaction out of you in order for her to control you and to get your attention. So the more you focus on her words, the more you're giving her what she wants. We said that. So have you seen what happens in a conversation, for example, where she succeeds to get you all focused on her words? So she may say something and you respond to her precise words. Because, I mean, in a conversation between people that are not trying to manipulate you, so when you're having a conversation with someone else, if someone says something to you, you're going to respond to those words. That's actually a very consciously active conversation. You're consciously listening. A person used whatever words, and you're going to answer to those words, and they're probably going to answer to your words, and it's all going to make sense. By the end of it, it's logical, it makes perfect sense. So that's probably how you would communicate with others. If you were in a conversation with me, that's how we would communicate, and that's it. It would be quite simple, really. But with a narcissistic mother, that's not how it works. So she may say something, and you respond to her precise words. Next thing, she may be denying she even said it. Has that ever happened to you? So she said whatever, and I can't think of an example right now, but like she said whatever words and you respond, and the next thing she's like, oh, but that's not what I said. Oh, that's absolutely not what I said. And you're like, yeah, well, that's actually exactly what you said. Those were the precise words you used. And she's like, no, absolutely not. That's not what I said. That's how you interpreted the words I used, and your interpretation is wrong. So she makes you wrong for how you've interpreted. Or she could say that she didn't mean it that way. Oh, yeah, well, if I said that, that's not actually what I meant. What I meant was, and she brings you around another loop of crazy words that you don't know what the hell is that about. Or she could completely contradict herself. She could tell you, one minute she could tell you the sky is blue, the next minute she could tell you the sky is purple, and you'd be like, what are we talking about here? It's all done to drag you into these loops of conversations. And in the meantime, she got you reactive and upset, possibly, and she also made you lose track of the point you were trying to make. And she won. Or maybe she got you all guilty. Or any other reaction that you know, if you're listening to this, you're like, oh yeah, every time that we have a conversation, I end up feeling, you fill in the blank, anxious, angry, upset, not enough, frustrated, guilty, useless, back to my 5-year-old self. Whatever is that happens with your mother when you're having a conversation, and she's bringing you around, and you're paying attention to her words, and she's confusing, and she's denying, and she's going back and forth, contradicting herself until you're like, you don't know where you are anymore. She won. And then you find yourself going through the conversation in your head afterwards, again and again, trying to make sense of it all. And you might talk to someone about it, and again, going through the conversation in your head, and you might even wonder where you have gone wrong in it. You know, you might end up being the one going, okay, what did I say that was wrong in that conversation? How did we end up from whatever starting point to the end point? Because the two things don't even seem connected, and you don't even know how you got there. And maybe you blame yourself for it, because she made sure to let you know that is all your fault if you're interpreting the conversation or her words in a certain way. So I get it. If you've ever been through that and you're nodding right now, let me know. You can send me an email, matilde@womenreclaimingtheirfullness.me, to let me know your experience. You can also leave a comment to say if that has been your experience. It certainly has been mine, and not just with my mother, but with a multitude of narcissistic people in my family. So I've been through that quite a bit. I spent precious hours, days, years of my life analyzing every word my mother said to me, and not just her. There was a time when she used to write me letters, actually, because we lived for a period when I was a teenager. She lived in a different country. So she sent me handwritten letters, and I would read them again and again to make sense of it all. I spent more afternoons in my teens years crying my eyes out, trying to figure out why a mother would use such words with her daughter. And until I discovered maternal narcissism years and years later, I never had an answer to that. So, and I was wondering, actually, I remember as a young person, if it was normal, I should be upset. If I was me being too sensitive. It was so confusing, exhausting, and most of all, it was soul destroying. Actually, really, those years, I remember them as soul destroying. That's the word that comes for me. So, what is the most empowering thing you can do about all of this? So I hope I've given you some clarity as to how a narcissistic mother will use words as weapons. Her words are weapons of manipulation, and all of her words are weapons of manipulation. Pretty much all the time. That's just how they operate. So what is the most empowering thing you can do about all of this? After accepting that her words are most likely manipulation, often even outright lies, after feeling the grief that will be there, after realizing you can't rely on what your mother says to you, because I get that. When we come to the realization that, oh my God, I can't actually rely on what my mother tells me, ever. I can't. That can be really intense as a realization to have. It definitely was for me, and I know it does come in a lot of emails that you send. That grief that's there, where you start understanding the way your mother operates, and you actually realize, okay, I can't rely on this person. She's my mother, but I can't rely on anything she tells me. And there's a grief there. So yes, you get to the awareness and you accept that that's the situation, and within that acceptance there is a grief that definitely needs to be honored and felt. And if you are in that phase, and if you're feeling that, or if you're feeling waves of that, I want you to know you're not alone. I fully get you, and I'm sending you all the love from here. So after that, the most empowering thing you can do is to stop listening and giving attention to her words, and start paying attention to your body. Okay, stop paying attention to what she says word by word, and start paying attention to your body. Why am I saying that? Your body, it's actually quite an accurate barometer or thermometer, whatever. It measures the true energy of a conversation. When we're connected with our body, we can feel what the conversation in general is doing to us, and we can start actually really relying on this as a system. So if for example, words feel like a punch in the stomach, they more than likely are a punch in the stomach. That's you're right there. So there's no point in going through them word by word again and again and analyzing it. Trust your feeling there and set a boundary. Maybe you don't even know why. You don't have a specific clarity as to what word really got to you. It doesn't matter. If a conversation, that's how it feels, you're like, okay, I'm not going on with this conversation with you right now. If you insist, I'll leave, or if you insist, I'll hang up the phone. And if she's going, why? But what did I say? Or did I use this word or whatever? It's just, I'm not going on with this conversation with you right now. Trust your feeling. Trust that feeling in your body. Stop listening. Don't engage. Set your boundary. If words make you feel uneasy or anxious inside, like, you could feel a tightness in your stomach, you could feel a tightness in your chest, you could feel a weight on your shoulders, or they could give you a headache because you're getting so confused. You could feel fog in your head, or you could feel a headache coming. You could feel a pressure behind your eyes. You could feel like you want to actually close your eyes and fall asleep. That's a reaction that happens in the body sometimes when a situation or a conversation gets very intense. That can be the body, the natural wisdom of the body is to withdraw from it. And so it can make you feel sleepy and tired. And trust your body. That conversation isn't a healthy conversation to be having. Reconnecting with your body, it's a process. Okay, as people that have been through a lot of trauma in childhood, the disconnection is that's what happened. Trauma is disconnection from self, is disconnection from the body, is disconnection from your gut feeling. So it is a process, and it requires some practice and training to actually get back in that full-on connection and to receive valuable information from your body. But it's worth it, as it is the most reliable ally you can have. It puts things back right in your control. You're reclaiming yourself, you're reclaiming the control panels, you're reclaiming your life by bringing your attention away from your narcissistic mothers and the words she uses to manipulate you in some way, and back into yourself, into your body. And from there you're like, this doesn't feel good. I don't care if you're actually telling me that you love me, but this really doesn't feel good. And immediately your body gives you that. The more you start feeling into it, feeling into your body, the more you practice, the more you'll start noticing how it's very quick. It gives you, like, there was a client recently sent me a message that her mother had sent her, and I'm not going to go through the words of it, but it actually was a loving message. Superficially, it was phrased in a way that was meant like this mother is in the love bombing phase, so it's all honey and butter wouldn't melt. But she showed me the message because, and it was a late at night message, of course. And it was confusing. I get it. It was confusing. This client was like, am I meant to be upset? Because I feel uneasy, but this is a good message, right? And yet I feel uneasy. So what's the story here? And I remember reading the message, and it's like the minute I read it, my body immediately was like, whoa, this feels rotten. It actually really feels rotten inside. If I whoa, that's what my body reaction was. So we're not focusing on the words word by word, but it's like the feeling is like, So I gently asked, in what it feels to me is this and that. That's the manipulation. The manipulation was like an attempt at guilting the daughter. So the mother was attempting to guilt the daughter through loving words, but there was a very clear guilting agenda there, and actually quite a veiled but very intense insult underlying the entire sentence. And then the confirmation was, yes, that's actually how I felt when I received it, but I wasn't sure. And so she was obviously going through the words and trying to kind of match that. The reaction that she was having didn't match the words. And I get that. Very often when we're focusing on the words, that's how we end up believing that we're too sensitive, that we're paranoid, that we don't understand how things go and we interpret them wrongly and we're the crazy one and all of that. Because what we're feeling and the words might not match, and that's the skill of the manipulator, is to make sure that they're not getting discovered in their manipulation. So they're gonna try to use words that are really, really, really accurate to push your buttons, but that you can never actually fully tell just by going through the words. And if you showed a message like that to someone that doesn't understand maternal narcissism or isn't in tune with their body and all of that, it'd be superficially interpreted as a lovely message. I mean, why are you so even upset? This message is really nice. I wish my mother sent me messages like that. And inside you're feeling, oh, no, this doesn't feel good. So we go back to the body, we go back to the body, we go back to the body. And what's happening in yourself, your gut feeling, you open up that pathway of connection. This is the work. This is actually the work that we do within the community. This is the work that we do in the one-on-one. We work with reconnecting with that inner guidance system, with that gut feeling. And from there, you don't need to pay attention to word by word, give a lot of analysis and break up a conversation, break up a message. You just feel how that felt, and then you take whatever action is necessary there. So how can you get to know your body and trust it? Because that's the next question. So how do I get to do that? The more you get to take time to dive into yourself and unpack triggers and trauma, the more you will reconnect with your gut feeling and your inner intelligence. It's a process. Again, it is a process. Staying with your body and beginning to trust it. Beginning to slowly go with, next time you are in a conversation with your mother, instead of paying a lot of attention to her words, this is something very practical you can do. Pay attention to yourself. Pay attention to what's happening inside of yourself. You're going to find it's very uncomfortable. It's actually really uncomfortable. It's way easier to keep your mind on other things. Bring your attention back to yourself, and you're going to start feeling all the discomfort inside your body. Not so much the emotions. I'm not asking you to analyze each emotion that happens when you are interacting with your mother. I'm talking about your body. So like literally what I said, it feels like a punch in the stomach. My stomach is tightening. If I feel a tension in my shoulders, my back hurts. The back of my head is tight or hurts or whatever. So physical body sensations. I feel like I want to curve and double over instead of sit up straight and listening. I feel like I want to run away. My legs are itching to run away out of the room. My legs are bouncing. I'm fidgeting. My hands can't stop moving. Those reactions. And start being present to that, to those sensations, to what's happening in your body. So move the attention from her and her blabbering and bring it back to your body. And stay with that. And that's the beginning of the work. Then there's a lot more, obviously, to go with that, because then we learn to regulate. We learn not to we learn to turn the discomfort into ease, but to take that discomfort as very powerful information that can then guide whatever is our next action. Like maybe you need to set a boundary there. Maybe you need to leave the conversation. Maybe you need to steer the conversation in a different direction. That very much depends on the situation you're in. It's case by case, very different. There isn't a formula that fit it all. But that's, then there's techniques also, like you start working with your body so that your body becomes this amazing ally and companion rather than a very uncomfortable place to be in. So that's the work. And as I said, it does require guidance and it does require practice. In the meantime, apply step 1 of the boundary setting 3 steps process. So we said prepare is step 1. In prepare, we talked about earlier that within prepare there is expect, but there is also discern. Okay, discern is actually the first of the 5 steps that are underneath prepare, and discern involves getting to know your values. So this can help you in a conversation, because when you are clear and you know your values, okay, you can start telling when a conversation is not in line with them and act accordingly without the need to analyze every word your mother used. Okay, so if you know your values, you can set better boundaries within a conversation without having to go word by word by word. So this can be like your support while you're getting to work with your body, while you're getting to understand how your body reacts, and you're getting to learn how reliable that is as an ally, and you can start working with that. But in the meantime, get very clear with your values. Like, for example, if your mother, we've talked about triangulation last week, and I know I am working on a mini series on triangulation that's coming, but triangulation is one thing. So if you know in your value system, you know you have a value by which you're not gonna talk, you don't talk about other people, you don't gossip, you only talk about the people that are present in the room, you never talk about people that are not there. That's your value. So you don't have to now go analyzing each word your mother says about your sister, about your brother, about your aunt. You have a value by which you're not going to engage. So it doesn't matter what she's saying. You don't have to go through the words to the point that then it feels uncomfortable and then you feel tired, exhausted, devastated. You can just set your boundary. I'm not going to talk about my sister with you. So whatever happened with my sister, you go talk to her, and that's it. We'll just change the conversation right now, or I'm leaving. You have your boundaries because you're going with your value. That's one example. If you have a value by which you're not discussing your parenting style with your mother. It's your value. Your parenting style is between yourself and the other parent. It has nothing to do with your mother. You're not going to talk about that. Your value is what you base your boundary on. So if your mother starts talking about that, again, you don't need to go there and analyze every word she uses or every message she sends you. You're clear on your value. You're like, well, no, I'm not going to discuss my children with you. That's it. Let's move on. So this can be a support in the meantime that you are beginning to get in contact with your body and actually just rely on those signals that your body is sending you, because your body is constantly communicating and attempting to. And then again, because of trauma, we can shut down certain pathways, but those are still there. Okay, they're not gone, they're not lost. So with a little bit of work and practice, we can reopen those pathways and then have that communication flowing. So the bottom line is every word your mother speaks manipulation? More than likely, yes. Let's go with that. If we get something that is not, well, that's a bonus, and we're going to be really happy about that. But like, more than likely, yes, most of her words are manipulation of some kind. A way of serving her own needs, a way to get you dysregulated, push your buttons, control you, get your attention on her in some way. So the solution to this, stop paying attention to her words, bring the attention back to yourself, focus on your values and act from them, and pay attention to your body and how your body reacts, and that's the information you need to then take whatever action is needed, whether it's a boundary of some sort. Okay, I hope this was helpful, and as always, let me know your reflections, your experiences with this. Send me an email at matilde@womenreclaimingtheirfullness.me for any questions and reflections you want to share. And also, if you're interested in diving deeper into this work to get to reconnect with your body, check out the program and the offerings, the Women's Circles. That's where we're doing this work. together and one-on-one. And so, yeah, if you're interested, you can go check that out. And as I mentioned, download your free boundary setting roadmap today. Okay, with that, I wish you a lovely week and send you lots of love. Bye for now.